Just the other day, the Smithsonian channel stopped by my apartment. They were doing a special on the early innovations of the running shoe. Of course, I had to include some Air Jordans. And before I take down the setup, I want to share it with you. And it starts right here at the staircase. I've got a Book of Guinness World Records. As you know, the ShoeZeum is featured in the Book of Guinness World Records, and then some money cats to welcome you. The money cats are highs, mids, and lows. We've got a pair of Guinness dunks, a pair of black and tan dunks, 2 Guinness World Record certificates, and the best Guinness of all, my best friend in the world, Guinness Geller. Come on over here and let's have a look at this pair of Air Mags. A trip to the ShoeZeum is like going back in time through shoes. And here we've got the time machine of the DeLorean, some DeLorean-inspired dunks, the Zoom trays, Hyper Dunks, Hyper Max, a hat, and of course another mag with an autographed hoverboard by Michael J. Fox. From one boot, I want to walk you to another boot. Come into the living room. Come over here. Here we've got the Danny Cass Arbido Snowboarding Zoom Force 1s. You'll see that there's a newspaper right here of the Las Vegas Review-Journal with me on the cover, balancing the boot on my head. And over here, the front cover of the San Diego newspaper with the Paris Dunks and then the Paris Dunks on display. We all know the Paris Dunks are the most valuable dunks in the city pack. Come over here and have a look at the mantle. Look at the art up above. I painted those shoes. And down below, a disco exhibit to talk about the early days of Nike. Nike got started in 1972, and disco was the thing in the 70s. Over here is an exhibit of the early Nikes. The Blue Ribbon Sports Days are right here, with Cortezes and Corsairs, Nike marathons and Onitsuka Tiger marathons. Many early Nike models were actually rip-offs of Onitsuka Tigers. So when you look at this shoe right here, you can see the resemblance to the Nike right below. Bill Bowerman used to tear these shoes apart to try to make better ones, and that's how we got Nike. Got some yearbooks over here. Bill Bowerman, Phil Knight, Steve Prefontaine's yearbooks. Nike was started by Bowerman and Phil Knight, and Prefontaine was one of the early runners. This is a statue of Nike, the Greek goddess of victory. And over here is a book known as Blue Ribbons. It's the best book that I know of on early vintage Nikes. There's a sting on the cover, so you've got a vintage pair of stings over here. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves. The stings are actually an updated version of the pre-Montreal. Here's a little pre-bobblehead, spikes and a wrench, Steve Prefontaine's autograph, certified by PSA, and of course the pre-Montreal shoes made for him to wear in the Montreal Olympics, but Steve passed away a year before the games and never got to wear those shoes. As we work our way over here, we'll see some of the evolution of the pre-Montreal, Zoom Shift FB track spikes, the pre-Montreal Racer. It's got waffle soles on there, which is the first big Nike innovation. And then back here, the evolution of this vintage Sting. We've got a retro pair right here, and then a Zoom Hachi lifestyle shoe that was also inspired by the Sting. Going back to Nike's first innovation, the waffle, I want to take you to the kitchen and we're going to talk about the waffle. So go check that out. Right over here, we've got the prototype of the very first waffle shoe. It was buried in Bill Bowerman's yard and dug up by a utility worker. Back here, a waffle iron, some waffle soles, a little book on the waffle innovation, and then behind here are some retros of the Moon shoe. So this is what the shoe would have looked like if it wasn't buried in Bowerman's yard for 40 years. There's a picture of Bill from his book written by Kenny Moore, some early books written by Bill Bowerman on jogging, as well as the Out of Nowhere book written by Jeff Hollister. Hollister is Nike's second employee after Jeff Johnson. The third employee was Nelson Ferris. Down below over here, Oregon Waffles in the University of Oregon colors, and then back here, the Waffle Trainer in UCLA Bruin colors. Bowerman was recently inducted into the Innovation Hall of Fame for all of these waffle shoes that he created with his wife's waffle iron. But it wasn't all Bowerman. It was Bowerman and Knight. And here's a cool little kid's book. It's called Partners, Bill Bowerman and Phil Knight Building the Empire. These are the Buck Dunks. Phil Knight's nickname is Buck. Again, University of Oregon colors. Back here, ShoeZeum Haywards. Nike was founded at Hayward Field, which is the track at the University of Oregon. And behind there, Waffle trainers in the University of Oregon colors. Keep working our way to the right. We'll check out some more Waffles. Up in front, some Daybreaks. These are in absolutely pristine, perfect condition. The name Daybreak comes from the fact that the colorway was inspired by the day breaking in the middle of the desert. And back here, the LDV. My dad used to run marathons in these shoes. LDV stands for Long Distance Vector. We've got a pair of retros back here, and then a pair of originals. One of the things I love about collecting Nikes is mating up the originals and the retros. Work our way over here to the front, Steve Prefontaine's first Sports Illustrated cover with University of Oregon colored pre-Montreal Waffle racers. And then in back, 2 pairs of Tailwinds, the first Nike shoe to have air in there. So from the 70s with the Waffle, I want to merge over into the 80s with Air. And I want to start with Michael Jordan. Back here, original Air Jordan 1s in a plethora of colors. All dead stock, all crispy, very minimal cracking and chipping, AJKOs over here in the corner. Over here, we've got a pair of metallic black samples, never released to the public. Behind them, you see a certificate of authenticity. That actually goes with the best pair in the collection, these game-worn Air Jordan 1s. You can see a signature right here on the right shoe. Something cool about this pair, the right shoe's a 13.5, the left shoe is a size 13. They come double certified from PSA and also from Mears. Best shoe in my collection. So we all know that Air Jordan 1 changed the game, and after the Jordan 1, there was a new Air Jordan every single season. I broke out the first 6 retros, the 1s, the 2s, the 3s. These came out in 1994. It's crazy to think that they actually didn't even sell very well back then. There was no hype around Jordan retros like there is today. From the Air Jordan line, I want to talk about the Air Max line. Started in 1987. Vintage ads of the Air Max up top, and a pair of original Air Maxes down below. Look how fun this is. Boom. It's where it all started. The first shoe with visible air, 1987, designed by Tinker Hatfield, inspired by the Georges Pompidou Center in Paris, France. Down below on this table over here, the evolution of the Air Max. It's basically the history of Air Pack that came out in early 2006, plus 4 more shoes. We've got the Air Max 1, the Air Max Lite, the Air Max 90, the Air Classic BW, the Air 180, the Air Max 93. We'll come back over to the front of the table and pick up with the Air Max 95, the Air Max 97, my all-time favorite shoe, the Air Max 2003, the Air Max 360, and then a couple more shoes that I added, the Air Max 2009, and then the most recent Flyknit Air Max. Anyway, it's a small microcosm of the collection. It's only about 50 pairs, but it's enough to be able to walk through some of the early amazing innovations that set Nike apart from other brands.